The conversation about the direction of education has been going on for years now, but we believe the future of education lies in the classroom.
Yeah, so that's me. I'm Anton. I'm from Geddit. And I'd like to start off by making a bold claim, at least when I get my slides. I like to make the bold claim that everyone in this room hated being tested in school. It's stressful. It doesn't really reflect the learning process. And by the time you get tested, it's too late for you to improve. Well, I've got good news for you. Teachers hate testing as well. And they're looking for tools and methods to replace understanding their students in the classroom. But I've got some bad news too. They haven't quite found out what those tools need to be yet. There's a great debate raging now about the future of education. Even among the 16 states of Germany, you won't find two education policies that are identical. Educators are wondering, do we deliver content online? Do we use social networking somehow? And what's the point of educating students anyway? We believe that the classroom is the key. We believe that the relationship between the teacher and the student is what matters. But there's a problem in the classroom. Students have trouble communicating their confidence and understanding to their teachers while they're being taught. They might feel too shy to stick up their hand in front of their peers, or they might be bored with what they're being taught, or they might be distracted by something else going on in their lives. But even if students did readily communicate all of these things to their teacher, the teacher would have to have 20 simultaneous conversations with different people in their classroom. And then they'd have to remember the 100 different conversations they had every day with each individual student. Well, we think we have a solution to this problem. Well, they've tried different ways of solving this problem. Besides the dreaded testing, they've tried things like multicolored cups. So by getting students to take a cup and put it on their desk to indicate how confident they feel. Or they've tried things like hardware clickers to do question and answer with their students. But all these solutions are kind of clumsy. They tend to be inflexible. It's difficult for students to make using these things a habit. And ultimately, they don't solve this problem of continuous communication. But we think we have the solution. Introducing Geddit. So Geddit's a web-based tool. It's available on all devices, including the devices that students have in their pockets. It empowers students to communicate their confidence and understanding to their teacher in real time while they're being taught. It lets the teacher get an overview of their class and understand each individual student's needs over time. So here's what it looks like. Students see a set of signal bars that they tap to indicate their confidence. A low signal means I don't understand what you're saying at all and I'm going to really need some help. A high signal means I totally get this, like I could teach this guy right here. So teachers see an overview of their class. It's a simple colored list that they can look at a glance and see how well they're doing when they're teaching the class. Or they can take a closer look at the progress of any individual student. So they say that what you can measure, you can improve. Geddit collects about 150 interactions over a 45-minute lesson with 20 students. With Geddit data, in one day, a teacher can plan their next lesson, taking into account their individual students' strengths and weaknesses. In 1 month, an educator can get an insights into what method of content delivery is best for their particular cohort. In a year, an educational institution can try out different testing methods and effectively A/B test education to provide the most value to all of their students. So there are other entrants in the educational apps market, but there's not really a market leader yet. There's no trusted brand among the 4 million secondary teachers and 50 million students throughout the OECD, not to mention the developing world and not to mention higher education. Governments and individual institutions are bringing devices into the classroom. There have been trials throughout the EU. In fact, there's a €9 billion fund here in the EU whose entire mandate is to bring technology to education. But there's already devices in the classroom. They're in the pockets of students and in their bags. Let's bring them out from under their desks. Let's stop them playing Angry Birds and make them something useful. So we've been in closed beta for a while now. We have a teacher co-founder. He's essentially the secret sauce on our team. He's helped us get this into our classrooms. We've got pilot programs starting throughout the European Union. We've got partnerships in the works with major content providers like textbook companies, as well as education consultancies. And before I started this business, I didn't know that those existed, but they want to be our partner. We're a team of 3 guys. We're from Melbourne, Australia. We moved to Berlin to start this company. Justin's our teacher, and he's been really driving this effort among our customers, gaining their trust, and helping them understand the power of technology in the classroom. Then there's me, I'm the business guy, and Will's our master tech guy. We also have some of the best possible advisors in this space. We have Professor Erkki Sutinen, who is the head of computer science and education at the University of Eastern Finland. This guy is a leading academic in the leading educational system in the world. And finally, in Berlin, we have Christoph Reitke. Again, I'm from out of town. Christoph is a teacher's son, but that's not what he's been advising us with. He's been helping us out with networking here in Berlin among educators in particular, as well as helping us with the mechanics of our business. So, what's in the future for Geddit? Well, we want to become a fundamental part of the future of education. By the end of 2013, we want to have our first complete institution signed up and using Geddit in all of their classrooms. If you know an educator, we would love to speak to them. If you're interested in joining us and help move education into the future, we'd love to speak to you. If you want to kick us some funding, yeah, we're available for coffee. And finally, if any of you have access to Google Glass, we would really love to borrow this because we've got some great ideas about how it can be used in the classroom. Thank you.
All right. Get it. Get it.
Get
nice.
it. Did you get the name? Did you get it?
Yeah, I get it.
Great.
This is great, but I can imagine, a lot of kids use their devices under the table, and I can imagine this being a massive distraction from what the teacher is actually trying to teach. So what is the investment of time that the student needs to make into data entry?
So we've designed Geddit to eventually become an unconscious habit for students in the classroom. The idea is that they should be interacting with the device as minimally as possible. There's too many education apps out there that force the teacher or the student to break attention away from teaching and to focus onto the device. Now, you've sort of asked me a two-part question because you asked me about, well, what if they take it off the desk and underneath and play Angry Birds, right? We've been seeing increased engagement, actually, with our lessons in our test classes. So again, because the teacher expects to see the device out and on the table, the students start treating it as a part of the classroom, not as a part of their personal belongings. Good things and bad things. A second part of this is, if a teacher is not seeing updates flowing in from a student, then there's something going on there. That student might be distracted, or there's something else going on. So
they're on Facebook.
Yeah, they might be on Facebook.
Judges.
I see a lot of issues. One of it being, whom are you selling this to? Is it to students, to teachers, to governmental bodies, to schools? And so there's a bonus question. What do you do if one or a few students in a class don't have don't have access to the system, don't use the system, whatever?
Okay, so this is really, I guess, a question about early adopters. We're targeting institutions starting up. So I mentioned our pilot programs in Austria, in Finland. We're targeting the sorts of institutions throughout Europe that either can provide their devices or in highly affluent areas like the Nordic countries where most students will have smartphones. To answer your second question, in secondary education, it's preferable for our system that each student has an individual device because the teacher's relationship with the student is much more individual there. In higher education, it's not as necessary because a lecturer is much more interested in getting a complete overview of their lecture theatre rather than in the particular personal needs of individual students. So it's a question of targeting, I guess, Peter.
So what's the primary feedback from your test group?
I'm sorry?
What's the primary feedback from your test group? What do users think?
So teachers think this is overwhelmingly positive, and they think that this is something that should have been invented. Teachers aren't aware of the power of technology. Based on the apps that they've already seen, they think that the best they can do is get this kind of end-of-the-day feedback or this kind of question-and-answer test-based feedback. And we've shown to them that this can be done in real time. They think it's great. Our best feedback has been from our students, actually, though. So I'll tell you a great story. Justin, our maths and science teacher, had his parent-teacher interviews. Roughly 3/4 of his parents came to him and said, my kid's been going on and on about this thing you're using in classrooms. Can you tell me what it is? I would love to understand it. We had great feedback at the VIS. The director there is a very data-minded gentleman. He understands the power of data to improve his educational institution. So the feedback that we've been getting has been uniformly positive so far.
Okay, and the security of the system, I mean privacy.
So we do our best to secure our database. We're using best practices throughout.
I mean, privacy of the privacy of the data, and who else can see how I feel.
So the only person who we're allowing to see directly, for example, the names of their students and who they are, is the person who's interacting with them on a daily basis anyway, being the teacher.
So I was on your website before you came up and pitched, and I saw it, and it's actually really easy and intuitive, and I just wanted to give you kudos for that.
Thank you.
Number one. But the second thing that it struck me then, and it's sort of striking me now, is like I love the simplicity of this. I think it's awesome. I think it's really easy to use, but it still just feels like this is sort of the dreaded feedback of it still feels like a feature, not an entire, not an entire set. And I think one of the reasons why you see in the education systems not a lot of market leaders because it's really hard to sell in. So I'm like concerned. I have a general concern about your being able to sell into a broad set of schools with a feature. That's not to say that you might not have all kinds of awesome ideas to make this a full product, right? But you didn't talk about any of those.
Sure.
So that would just be like super high level concerns that I have.
No, I totally understand. So the reason that we started off as a feature and not the full product is because we needed to test the idea that we could actually collect data from inside the classroom this way. The real product here is the data. So we have Geddit in the classroom. We can bring in additional data sources to contextualize this data. Again, that was kind of a two-part question. You know, what is this going to become? And the second one is how do you sell it, right? We've got two ways. We've tried direct sales with directors. So far, pretty positive. We've had a good rate of sign-on for pilot programs. We've got more launching here in Germany and throughout Europe in May. The other thing is getting it into the hands of teachers. So teachers have a really well-established professional network through whom they learn about things that they can trust, things that they're told are going to be easy to use and good for them to use in their class. And we've started doing a content-based marketing drive, engaging teachers personally, running professional development workshops about technology in the classroom, again, because teachers simply aren't aware that this is possible, to become that trusted thing that you use in your classroom and then build on top of that value.
And where are you going to go with price points on this? Where do you start?
So we've been pricing our pilot programs out at about €10 per student per annum. That's been getting a lot of
That's quite punchy, right? When you've got people who are doing full-featured kind of math practicing for sort of €4 per student per year.
Sure, but that's what we've been seeing. I mean, a price point is something that we obviously need to test quite emphatically, but we've been getting the sign-on despite the fact that we are still just a feature company.
Oh, impressive.
Oh, one question down here from the audience.
Not from an advisor, though, please.
Well, first off, I'm really happy that the likes of you guys actually come all the way from Australia, deliberately choosing Berlin to get your company started. So that's perfect, and I love it. I would be interested in how far can you take this money-wise? Is this a company that can make eventually 10 million, 100 million, a billion? What's your ambition on that? We've heard that you're charging €10 per student, but how far can that eventually go? Will it make you and me and everyone rich?
I hope so. The real question here is, what are the adoption rates for this? And how many classes? Let's assume that our marketing goes right, and our sales goes right, and our value proposition is good. Adoption rates throughout the OECD of mobile devices, it's about 40% flat in the age group that we've targeted so far, and it's growing by about 27% year on year. In higher education, the trends are even stronger. So even in that secondary education market is eventually going to be all 4 million teachers and all 50 million students in the OECD. In higher education, it's similar numbers. When the developing world catches up with mobile technology, and they will because prices on smart devices and the reach of the internet continues to grow and the prices continue to fall, it's a pretty big proposition if we get the business to work. So there's a lot to validate along the way, but I don't want to name a number because I'm going to look stupid when that doesn't happen. But I'm going to say 100 million. Why not?
Say $1 billion. Go on.
No.
You know who you should partner with? Do you know Khan Academy?
Yeah, totally. If you have a way for me to reach Sal Khan, that'd be great.
I got contacts. All right, big round of applause for Geddit.